Hello children, today we are going to learn the third unit of supplementary reading book, that is A Pact with the Sun. The third unit, this is a story about a shepherd and his life. How was his wisdom and what happened and what he gained through his wisdom. Now we'll begin. A poor shepherd once lived in Iran. Though uneducated, he was very wise and helpful. The king decided to meet him in disguise. Now see, these 3 points tell us that how was the shepherd, what kind of education he gained, and how was he, and what the king decided. Why did the king decided to meet him? Now we'll discuss. We'll go line wise now. In a village in Iran, there once lived a shepherd. He was very poor. He did not have even a small cottage of his own. So here, first two lines say that there was a shepherd who was living in a village area or in a village of Iran. Iran is a country, name of a country. So he was very poor. Second sentence says that he was very poor. He did not have even a small cottage of his own. It means he was homeless. He did not have a small cottage or small hut of his own. Okay. Then he had never been to school or learnt to read and write, and he did not go to school to learn how to read and write. Why? Because for there were very few schools in those days. Because he could not go to school for learning reading and writing, because in those days there were very few schools, very less schools. Second paragraph. Though poor and uneducated, this shepherd was very wise. Though we know that the shepherd was very poor and he was uneducated, this shepherd was very wise. He was very clever. He understood people's problems and sorrows and troubles and helped them face their problems with courage and common sense. So, because though he was uneducated and poor, he was very clever, he was very wise, and he used to help people of his village and nearby his villages. He understood the problems of the people. Sorrows and troubles mean the difficulties, the problems of the people. He understood, and he helped them to face their problems, and he helped the people to solve their problems with courage and common sense. With courage and common sense means how should the people should solve their problems with courage and common sense. He used to help them. He used to suggest them ways. Many people came to him for advice. So many people came to him to ask for an advice. Soon he became famous for his wisdom and friendly nature. So after some days, in very less time, he became famous for his wisdom, for his cleverness and his friendly nature. So he became famous around his country, because of his wisdom, his helping style to the people. So the king of that country heard about him and thought of meeting him. And the king of that country, he also heard about this shepherd, and he thought that he should meet the shepherd because he was famous. For his wisdom. Disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule, one day the king came to the cave where, so here first, disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule. Disguised means he just king changed his clothes, he just changed his appearance, and as if he wanted to hide his identity so that people should not recognize him. So he also disguised. What kind of disguise he took? He took the disguise. He disguised as a shepherd. He also he wore the clothes, and his appearance he made like a shepherd, and he ride on a mule. Mule, it's a breed of horse which is not as heighted as horse and not short as donkey. So it's a middle type of creature. It's a horse breed only. One day the king came to the cave where the wise shepherd lived. So one day, in disguise, the king came to the cave, near the cave of the shepherd, where the shepherd lived. As soon as the shepherd saw the traveler coming towards the cave, he rose to welcome him. And as soon as when the shepherd, the real shepherd, means the clever shepherd, saw that the traveler is coming to his cave, a traveler is coming, he is approaching to his cave. So the clever, the wise shepherd, he rose to welcome, he stood up and he welcomed the king. But he did not know that he did not know he was a king. He just, in the beginning it is said that he understood that there is a traveler, but the king thought that he is just the shepherd is shepherd hasn't recognized him and he is welcoming. He took the tired traveler inside the cave. So the shepherd took this traveler inside his cave. Why? Because he thought that the traveler is tired. So who is traveler here? Traveler is a king who is in disguise. So the shepherd gave him water to drink and share of his own meager meal. So the shepherd gave him some water to drink and his meal, whatever the simple meal he had, he gave to the king. The king rested for the night in the cave and was greatly impressed by the shepherd's hospitality and wise conversation. So the king rested there for a night. He just rested there. He made a halt there. He stayed there for one night and he took rest there. But he was impressed also. He was very happy. He was fascinated by the shepherd's hospitality. Hospitality means his style of behaving towards the guests. So the shepherd's behavior, in the way he took care of the king. So the king was impressed by the hospitality and wise conversation, his intellectual talking with the king. He was impressed. So in the next part now, though still tired, the king decided to depart the next morning. Though the king was tired, still he was tired because he was a king. He did not used to go on mule for longer distance, and this time he came far away. So he was tired, but he did not haste. He decided to depart. He decided to go to the next morning. In the next morning, so he said, the king said, "Many thanks for your kindness to a poor traveler. I have a long way to go. Permit me to leave." So the king said, "Many thanks for your kindness." To whom? To the shepherd. He thanks to the shepherd, to a poor traveler. What the kindness that the shepherd showed to the poor traveler. Actually, he was not a poor traveler, but he himself says that he is a poor traveler. He wanted to hide his identity. So he says again, "I have a long way to go." So he says, "I have to go very long. So permit me to leave. Let me go. Permit me." Then, looking straight into the eyes of his guest, the shepherd replied, Thank you, Your Majesty, for paying me the compliment of a visit." So the shepherd straightly looked into the eyes of the guest, eyes of the king, and the shepherd replied, "Thank you, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, King, thank you very much." For what? For paying me the compliment of a visit. You came here, you gave me this compliment, you thanked me, and you gave me the opportunity to serve you. So thank you for this. The king was astonished as well as pleased. By listening this, the king was astonished, surprised. The king was surprised. Why he was surprised? He was shocked that he was in disguise. Still, the shepherd could recognize him. That's why he was astonished. So he is indeed very wise. He thought to himself. So the king thought himself that, oh, really, he is really very wise, because he was in disguise. No one could recognize him. Still, the shepherd could understand. The shepherd could recognize his king. "I need people like him to work for me." So the king thinks himself. He thinks that he needs the people like this shepherd, wise people, for him to work for the king. And the king appointed this humble shepherd the governor of a small district. And when he came to know that, he recognized, so he says that I need the wise people like you for my kingdom. And the king appointed, he made this humble shepherd what did he make? He got a new job. The shepherd got a new job of a governor of a small district. He became a governor of a small district in the first meeting. Although he rose to power and dignity, the shepherd remained as humble as ever. Though he became a governor of a district, a small district, but he continued. Though he had power and dignity, he was a powerful man. He was a governor. He could change many things. So he had power and dignity, but the shepherd remained. He still was humble like before. The people loved and honored him for his wisdom, sympathy and goodness. So the people of his district, they loved and they honored him for his wisdom and sympathy and goodness towards the people. Because of his wisdom, he used to solve the problems. As now he was a powerful governor of the small district, of that district. He was kind and just to one and all. He was just kind and just. Just means here he used to treat equally to all. So he was just, impartial to one and all. So with everybody his behavior was same. His fame as a fair and wise governor soon spread throughout the country. So his fame, he again became famous. Now this time he did not become famous as a shepherd, but this time he became famous as a best governor, as one of the best governors, as a fair and wise governor, in throughout the country, in whole Iran. He was famous for his wisdom. Now the governors of other provinces grew terribly jealous of him and began to talk to the king against him. Now because of his fame, the other governors of the other districts and regions, provinces means regions or districts, other small districts or regions, so they grew terribly jealous of him and began to talk to the king against him. So the other governors began to talk to the king because of the jealousy. They said, he is very dishonest and keeps for himself part of the money that he collects as tax from the people. So the other governors, they started talking to the king about this shepherd. What did they say? They said that the shepherd, this new governor, is dishonest. He is not honest. Dishonest is the opposite of honest. So he is dishonest and he keeps for himself part of the money that he collects as a tax or from the people. So he keeps some money, whichever he takes in the form of tax from the people, he keeps something as corruption. Why did he always carry with him, they added, an iron chest? So they said again that why that new governor keeps an iron box with him. Chest means a particular box in which we carry some valuable things, that is chest. So why does he carry that iron box with him all the time? They added, perhaps he carried in it the treasure that he had secretly collected. And they again added that perhaps he is carrying those things, the chest, with him, so that he can keep all the material, all the money, all the treasure, all the property all the money which he gets from the people in the treasure he may be keeping in that box or in that chest secretly. After all, they said mockingly, he was an ordinary shepherd and could behave no better. And after all, they say that he was nothing, he was a shepherd, so that may be possible that he may be keeping some money in that chest, because in the beginning he was a poor. And so that they started complaining to the king about him. At first the king did not pay attention to these reports, but how long could he ignore these governors and their endless stories about shepherd? So in the beginning the king did not pay attention, he did not listen to them. He listened but he did not act for this carrying chest. But again and again the other governors started saying about this chest and this shepherd. So he could not ignore this thing for many days. So he also was worried that why one thing was certain. He was also worried that why really this is a fact that this new governor, he carries a thing with him. One thing was certain, you were correct, clear. What was that? The king discovered, the king also found that. What was that correct thing? that the new governor did carry an iron chest with him all the time. That this new governor, he carries an iron chest with him all the time, and this was a new thing, and that's why he could not ignore the talkings of the other governors. So one day the new governor was summoned to the palace. So that is why the new governor, the shepherd, he was now the new governor. He was called to the palace. He was summoned. Summoned means an order to call someone. That is summoned. So he was called by an order to visit to the palace. So he came riding on his camel, and to everyone's delight, the famous iron chest was there, fastened securely behind him on the camel's back. So he came to the palace riding on a camel. So everybody's satisfaction here, everybody's delight means what? For everybody's satisfaction or happiness, the famous iron chest, the chest or the box which he carried all the time with him, it was also carried at that time, and there was tied. It was tied securely behind him on the camel's back. It was also fastened. It was tied behind the camel. Now the king was angry. He thundered, "Why do you always carry that iron chest with you? What does it contain?" And by looking at that chest, the king was angry, as the people said to him, as the other governors told to him. He thundered. He loudly shouted at him and asked, "Why do you carry that iron chest with you? Why always you carry that iron box with you? What does it contain? What is that in it?" The governor smiled. He asked his servant to bring in the chest. So the governor asked his servant to bring the chest in the court. How eagerly the people standing around waited for this shepherd to be found out, and everybody in the court was very eager, very curious to see that the shepherd is now thief, and what does he show us now? Now he is going to open his chest. They all were eager, but how great was their astonishment, and even of the king himself. And there was another incident which was going to present an astonishment moment, a surprising moment for all, even the king also. When the chest was opened, no gold or silver or jewels, but an old blanket was all that came out. But everybody, when the chest was opened, everybody was surprised. Why? Because there wasn't gold or silver in that chest, but only an old blanket. In that chest there was an old blanket. Holding it up proudly, the shepherd said, "This is my dear master, is my only treasure. I always carry it with me." And he just picked up that blanket before the king and said, "My lord, this is the only, your majesty, this is my dear master, and this is my treasure, this is my property which I carry always with me in the chest." "But why do you carry such an ordinary blanket with you?" the king asked. The king asked him that, "Why do you carry, now you are the governor of a district, then why do you carry this ordinary blanket, a simple blanket with you?" Then he answered, "Surely," then the king says, "Surely you are the governor of a district," the king asked. And he said that you are a governor of a district, then why do you carry this simple blanket with you? Then to which the shepherd replied with quiet dignity and politely, humbly. The shepherd replied to this question. And what was his answer? "This blanket is my oldest friend," he said. This old blanket is my oldest friend. It will still protect me if at any time your majesty should wish to take away my new clothes. See, this blanket will protect me, this blanket will help me at any time, always, at any time. If my majesty, if my king, now he is telling king that if my majesty or if my king decides to take away my new cloak or new work, here cloaks means works or jobs or responsibilities or authorities or rights. If my king, he takes the opportunity or the authority or the power of my power of governor from me, then this old blanket will help me forever. How pleased the king was, and how embarrassed the jealous governors became to hear the wise man's reply. And the king was pleased by his answer. He was very happy by his answer. And how embarrassed, how repenting the other jealous governors, how they were made foolish by the answer of this wise man. Now they knew that the shepherd was indeed the humblest and the wisest man in the land, and all the people, even the king, understood that the shepherd was the humblest. He was among the humblest and wisest man in his country. The king made him the governor of much bigger district that very day, and after that incident, the king made him a governor again, but this time he became a governor of much bigger district on the same day. This story is of Iran, and how an uneducated people, but he had a kind heart, he was wise, and his helping nature, he became famous and he became a successful person in his life. So here the lesson comes to end. Now these question answers are uploaded to the website where you find this video. So video will be also uploaded on the site. Okay.